Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter, and first I want to say thank you to all the people that have subscribed to my YouTube channel lately. I figured I'd better make another video because I've got a lot of new subscribers and I guess you probably want something to watch, huh? Well, today I'm going to show you a technique called faux distress ink. Now, I don't have any distress ink pads. I'd love to someday, but I just don't, and I have a lot of other ink pads, so it's hard for me to justify buying some more ink. So what we're going to do today is use our inkjet printer and a few other things from around the studio to make this cute little card. Let me see if I can hold it up a little bit closer. So the first thing you'll want to do is go to your computer using whatever software you have. I used Paint Shop Pro and I just printed a sheet of orange cardstock. I opened a new document and I just used my paint bucket to dump in this kind of tangerine color. If you don't have Paint Shop Pro, you can use Photoshop, Photoshop Elements, or even the free program that you can find online called GIMP. It's found at www.gimp.org, and it is it's pretty easy. It's as easy to use as Paint Shop Pro or Photoshop. So basically, you need a sheet of orange paper that you printed off of an inkjet printer, and then I will show you what to do next. Let's get to it. Okay, here I have my paper that I printed off of my computer, and this image we're going to color in a little bit, and I'll show you how to do that very quickly in a little bit. And I'm working on a silicone mat. You can use, I'm using a Silpat mat that I keep for crafting purposes, but you could use a non-stick crafting mat, or you could use like a Wilton silicone cake decorating mat, or even one of those big silicone pads you can get in the dog food aisle at Target, which is meant for like putting underneath your dog bowls. Those are silicone and they actually cover a huge space, so all sorts of options for whatever budget you have. And I'm just going to use a little bit of orange ink, and I am going to just ink around the edges. And the reason I'm using the silicone mat is because I don't waste as much ink as I would if I was using just a scrap of paper. I used to use a scrap of paper a lot, but this, I kind of am able to pull a lot of that ink right back onto my card. And the reason I'm doing this is just to give it more of that distress ink pad look. Again, I'm not knocking the distress ink pads, I just don't have any, so I'm just showing you an option how you can get the look with your printer. Because the neat thing about a home printer is that you could have whatever color you want. You can if you can't find a paper or an image to purchase, you can always make your own. It's a wonderful craft tool, and that's how I look at my computer, as a great crafting tool. Alright, so I've just blended in that orange, and I want to have a little bit more green. So like I have a little green around the edges here on that card. And this stylus I'm using here, you can use just a foam makeup applicator, but this is by Clear Snap. It's the Color Box Stylus and ink blenders. And I've got these a few years ago, and I realized I hadn't really used them much, so I decided now would be a great time to get them out and show them some love. But I usually would use makeup applicators, just the foam makeup wedges, but I remembered I had these, so I decided to give them a whirl. Alright, so I'm just going quickly. I'm not worried about it being perfect, because I just want to kind of show you, for the purpose of the video, how to do this technique. Now the next thing you need is a bottle of water. I had to run across my craft room to get it. And I'm just going to take an unmounted stamp, and this is just a bamboo design from About Art Accents, one of my favorite stamp companies. And I'm just going to give it a spritz of water. And I'm not worried if any of this goes onto my paper, because it will just add to the effect. Now I'm going to stamp it down. Let me do it so I'm right set up for you here. And I'm just going to give it a little wiggle, because that's really going to loosen up the inkjet printed ink and give me that kind of batik-y look that distress ink is known for. Alright, now can you see that? I'm just going to put it right up close, and hopefully it can focus, the camera can focus in. But it kind of wicks the ink out to the edge of the design. I think it's a really pretty effect. And you can actually, a lot of times, stamp a couple times before you respray your stamp. Now, I need a little more water on that. The bolder stamped images will work best. But you can use what you have, like these detailed butterflies, also by About Art Accents. They work good too. I like to stamp them a couple times, because then I'll get one that's more of an outline and one that's a little more detailed. And oh, if you want to just add some, you can add some speckles just by, I kind of like shake it and then spray it so I get some big blobs. You can do that too. The pity is most of this will be covered up when you make your card, but this is just kind of a fun technique to try. And I want to put a little calligraphy, and I'll show you a little tip. Excuse the drop there. When I have a stamp that's got calligraphy on it or something in another language, maybe I might not be able to read, but mostly for Oriental calligraphy, is you can't really see it through my block very well, but I drew a little arrow on the back showing this side is up, so I don't accidentally stamp it upside down and then get an angry email from somebody saying, hey, you stamped my Japanese calligraphy upside down. How rude. I'm going to stamp that a couple times on there. All right, now we want to let that dry, but before I let it dry, I'm just going to go ahead and stamp a few more butterflies in the orange. I'm just kind of, I'm going to wipe off my stamp on my jeans because it's just water. It's not going to hurt anything. My friend Cindy calls it Stamper's butt. She just she cleans her stamps on her jeans. I'm ratting you out, Cindy, but it's so funny. She calls it Stamper's butt. She always makes sure she wears a dark color when she comes over to stamp. I'm ratting you out. Sorry, Cindy. I could give her blog address too. She probably wouldn't appreciate that. And then I'll do the little calligraphy and a little orange ink too, just to bring that depth of color, the depth of layers up a little bit more. Alright, so this is what we have for our background, and I'm just going to set this aside to dry while I show you our next technique. Okay, so a lot of people ask me, I'm just going to wipe my mat off just to make sure I don't have any extra water. The thing about the silicone mats is they clean up really easily, and I actually had delusions of Martha Stewart grandeur when I asked for a Silpat mat for Christmas a couple years ago, thinking I was going to make lots of cookies and things, and that never happened, and this was just sitting in a drawer for about 2 years unused, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to use it. I'm going to use it for my stamping because it won't roll up on me, it's going to stay nice and flat, and might as well use it for something. Alright, this is a digital stamped image. It is from my pen and ink poppy set. You can find that through my shop, Lindsay Stamp Stuff, at mygraphico.com. And I'm going to show you how to very easily color an image. I've got my Pro markers here, but I'm going to tell you it will color just as well with Bic markets, or Sharpies, or Copics, or Prismacolor, or whatever you have. And what I'm using are basic primary colors. I got a primary red, which is called Ruby. I've got this primary yellow called Canary, and I've got this bright orange called Bright Orange. So you can easily find those in like your Bic market colors. So when I start to color, I like to go in, and the great thing about this pen and ink design is that where you see the concentration of lines, that's where you want to put your darker colors. And I'm going to do this a lot more quickly than I would if I was, you know, just coloring it and not doing a video. But I just want to show you how easy it is to get nice blending with your markers and any alcohol. And the nice thing, and I have to say this, I love my Pro markers and I love my Copics. And I love my Prismacolor markers, but the great thing is that you can use those markers along with the inexpensive Bic markets and the Sharpies, and they all blend together because they have the same solvent. They're all alcohol based. Alright, so I've just quickly thrown in some red. The only thing I don't like about my Pro markers is that you got to make sure you really line up the tip when you put it in, or I always feel like I'm going to damage the tip when I put it back. Now when I go in with the orange, or my mid value, I'm going to color over the entire thing. Well, the entire thing except for that tiny little dot in the center. I'm just going to be careful not to get out of the lines because I'm not going to be trimming this. If I was going to cut it out, I would just color it with a broad end willy-nilly and not even worry about it. But since I know I'm not going to trim it, I want to be careful. I'm just doing little circles so I can loosen up the red pigment that I've already put down. There's so many great markers on the market today. You really can't go wrong. I mean, as long as you get something with a decent point. The only thing to consider is that if you use your markers a lot and you find they're running dry on you a lot, you probably want to invest in a more expensive marker that allows you to refill it. Or even maybe just on the colors that you use a lot. Like I use like the Copic marker Skin White. I use that a lot, so I'm going to buy a just a bottle of the ink and refill it. But there are colors that, you know, like mauve or bright purple that I might only use once in a blue moon. So those are the ones to have like in the cheaper markers, because I know I'm never going to need to refill it. I just don't use it that much. And it's okay to mix and match. I know it's nice to have a container with all the same markers in it because it looks pretty and stuff, but it's really not necessary as far as your art's concerned. For the highlights, I'm taking my bright yellow, and I'm just going in on the lightest spots, and you'll notice that where I color, it kind of pushes the pigment away, and it lightens up the area. So instead of it being blending really, it's almost lightening. So I like to think of the clear blending marker as a lightening marker because it lightens the area. And the same thing with this yellow marker. It's lighter than the orange and the red, so it's lightening it. Now I could go back in with red if I wanted a little more drama, but I'm happy with that. I'm just going to take this kind of earthy green, color my stem. I don't really have a lot of space to work with, so I think I'll just stick with that. And there we go. And I want to add a pretty little kind of rouge around the sides, and I'm going to go in with my green. This is a Stampin' Up! Ink pad. It is Old Olive, I think. I really like Stampin' Up! Dye inks. I'm not a demonstrator or anything, but I have a couple of friends who are, and one of my friends was moving and she wanted to downsize, so she sold me all of her colored inks, and she decided to just keep the smaller ink pads because it was going to work better in her new space. So that was great. That's why I have so many of the Stampin' Up! Ink pads. But I also like that their re-inkers aren't very expensive, so I can, you know, use a lot of ink and not break the bank. And see how easy this is to just rouge the edge a little bit? It's good to move your paper as you go, so you're not just trying to attack it all from one spot. It'll be a lot easier if you can kind of pull the ink towards you. All right, now I want just a little accent on here because that's just kind of stark for me. I like to have a little bit more going on. So I'm going to take this other calligraphy stamp, and I put my little arrow on the back. I don't think you can see it on the video because it's kind of small. So just so I know, I'm not going to stamp it upside down because how embarrassing. Especially since I'm doing this card as part of the Oriental Stamp Art Sketch Challenge I have this week, and that would be very embarrassing to stamp it upside down. And I'm just going to put that in right here. I like to let the stamp kind of go off my panel a little bit. There. I could add something else if I wanted to. I could add a little butterfly, but I kind of like that off-center, look. I think it looks a little artsy and kind of fun. Okay, let's see how our paper is doing. See if it's dried up. I think it's dried pretty well. So now what I would do is I would just put this on here, and with a little foam adhesive to make it stick up a little bit. Put this on my black card base. Make sure it's opening the right way. It's hard to do this upside down. For those of you that don't know, I film all these upside down so that they'll be right set up for you. And then another really, really fun trick I learned, and this is actually through my stamping group about art accents. A woman gave this great tip, and I have to share it with you. Her name is Suzanne. Hi, Suzanne. She said to take a drinking straw, cut a little piece off it, wrap it in fabric, and then wrap a little thread around it, and it just makes a really pretty Oriental accent. So then I thought, boy, I love that technique. I got to try it. But I was looking at my card, and I thought I really want something a little bit more organic. So I went on my front yard, and I picked up a twig. For some reason, I'm in Maine, and it's January, and we have no snow on the ground, and I have lots of little dead branches on the ground. So I picked up this little twig, and I wrapped it around with some of this Madria thread. It's like an embroidery thread. I bought it because I thought it was pretty, and it was on sale. It was 59 cents at Martin's, another Maine staple. If you're from Maine, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I just wrapped it around one way, and then when I got to the end, I turned around and came the other way just to give it a little more sparkle. And then I tied on a gold charm, like a brassy kind of gold charm. And I'll let you in on a little tip. It's hard in rural areas to find like good Oriental embellishments. I ordered these ones from skybluepink.com, but I also was able to find them in jewelry shops. You can a lot of times find the little embellishments in jewelry shops. So I would dangle one of these cute little Buddha yin-yang-y charm things from here. Put that on there. And here you can see I left the charm dangle down. And what it does, it covers up a little a little strip that I stamped. It says "Just for you," and this was just a little strip that was hanging out by my paper cutter because I had just trimmed something. So it's great to grab those things and reuse. I also took the little scraps of thread that I had left over after I tied and trimmed it off, and I stuck it up here. And these three little things that kind of look like coins, they're actually die-cut buttons. I know if you've watched my videos before or checked out my blog, you know I love the embosslit dies from Ellison. The one I used here was one, it's sold through Stampin' Up, but it's made by Ellison, and it cuts and embosses cute little buttons, and I thought these little ones that I had cut and embossed out of gold paper looked just like coins. So I thought that was just the perfect little accent for this simple little card. I want to thank you so much for watching. I do hope you give the Faux Distress Ink challenge a try, and you know, give it a whirl. You don't know exactly how it's going to come out, which is the beauty of it, and it'll save you a couple bucks on an ink pad. At least until you can afford the distress inks. So there you go. Get the look for less. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy crafting!